Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever The Other Party podcast with my amazing co-host. There you go. That's your tea.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, I'm Moles on Twitter. Also Samantha. Pleased to be here with Dom. And yeah, it's exciting times with the launch of The Other Party. And we thought we'd come online and kind of have a chat about it so you could get to know a bit more about us and the party.
There we go. Have you prepared some before people in the comments actually step up? If people do have any questions, please do ask them in the comments section, but we'll start straight away so that we can jump straight in and get a Q&A and an overview. I'll give a quick intro into sort of the reasonings behind setting it up, and for anyone who's not familiar with blockchain tech in particular, and the reason why it's absolutely mad that we are still using pen and paper ballots. For those who aren't aware, blockchain as a decentralized storage of data makes perfect sense to register votes on this, because at the end of the day, the fact that we have all of these postal ballot arguments with Trump Biden back in 2020, it seems like so long ago. God, got to do it all next year again. The fact that you still have these arguments are just completely defunct if we finally have common sense and actually use technology, which we've had around for over a decade, and vote democratically on chain. The reason why we don't is purely must be driven by media painting blockchain out as money laundering and drugs on the internet rather than actual democratic values and the fact that it can be immutable. So with that in mind, there's no reason with blockchain and direct democracy that we cannot completely remove the need for politicians from the whole political process, because at the end of the day, the job is supposed to be to mandate the will of the people, the will of the electorate, and put their policies into power. And I would argue that the role of a politician nowadays is to completely contradict that, as in, corporations, NGOs know that they can circumvent the will of the people by bribing these 650 people at the top, whether you call it bribing or lobbying or general corruption. At the end of the day, if I was working in Tesco and I was selling the products from Sainsbury's and pocketing the difference, I'd be arrested. But with lobbyists, you can do that, and it's politics. So it needs to change, and I'm not sure if we have 5 years left. And so poor old Muggins here has had to get on the cross myself. So I hope that gives people a bit of background.
I'm sure it does. What I'd like is for you to kind of explain, you said on-chain and direct democracy. So can you just, for people that have got no idea what those things are, can you kind of clarify that for me, please?
On-chain. On-chain is blockchain, as in there's two aspects to crypto and cryptographic technology. There is blockchain technology and there is cryptocurrency. So the difference is that cryptocurrency is on the blockchain, but a blockchain is a decentralized ledger which records information transparently. So these two things tend to get conflated when they really don't need to be, because at the end of the day, one is just sort of using the other as a motorway, as in a blockchain is called a blockchain because validators, which are data nodes, trying to find a way to talk about this in understandable terms, but they validate blocks, and the blocks go ahead of each other, and that is the chain, and why it's called a blockchain, because within these blocks are stored data. And that's why it can be fully transparent, because it's validated by a group of separate data node operators. And crypto just is built on the blockchain, and tokenization and those sort of things can be done, but they're very separate. However, they're just, it's like saying that like technology is a wrapper which covers everything from like healthcare tech to virtual reality. Completely different, but still called tech. What was the other one? There was two.
Direct democracy.
There we go. Direct democracy. So it's important to understand that we have no ideology, and that's very important in terms of mass adoption, in terms of use of our memorabilia. We basically have no ideology, which means that we are just the infrastructure for everybody else to build on top of. We are facilitating real individuals and real people coming onto our platform and using the technology that we are providing in order to put forward their own ideologies, their own opinions. The good thing about direct democracy is that the current system works to polarize. And so the example I always give, which whether it's the best one or not, is capital punishment for child murderers. A lot of people, if you just asked a group of people, do you think that there should be capital punishment for those people? A lot of them would say yes. But a lot of other people would say that the state should have no opinion whatsoever on life or death of citizens, which both arguments are fair enough. However, if, let's say, Labour put one on their manifesto that they do believe in that would be enough for some people to say, well, I can't support the party because they have that one thing on there. With a direct democracy, you cannot abdicate responsibility in response to something that you don't like happening. And the reason why is that your abdication from that process only makes your opposition stronger. So rather than politics pushing people out and polarizing, it brings people actually into the debate, because you don't have this get out of jail free card. It's so easy for us to just say, oh, let them get on with it. Like, what have those politicians got us into this time? At the end of the day, that attitude is just facilitating this perpetual ongoing situation. And it only gets worse. And like, I can't just allow it. Like, everybody does. Everyone wants a savior, but no one's willing to get on the cross. And, you know, how long do we really have? Like, the technological advancements that we have with like AI, just how badly everything seems to have gone, like just in the past couple of years. And we seem to be gunning for a war with China for God knows what reason. It just has to stop. And I don't know if in 5 years' time, like, we'll be in that situation. Humans are very, very community like centric, and we all band together in times of like struggle. It was like, you know, clap for carers at the beginning of COVID, and everyone was singing and dancing, and everyone was like feeling that sense of community, because it's our nature as, like, you know, essentially herd animals. If you go back in time, that's just the way that we react. And so any sort of crisis, you see this attitude in people, and, you know, they do snap out of it quickly because it is just a phase. But at that time, like, you know, everyone was rallying behind the government with lockdown. Like, people were supporting it and vindicating people against it. And it's really dangerous, because once you get into that crisis mode, like, it's really hard. It's like most movements, social movements, like even like the suffragettes, when we had First or Second World War, or maybe it was both, like, you know, that rights movement was paused because, you know, there was this existential crisis. But it's just that the next existential crisis might literally be nuclear war, and none of us come out of it. So, you know, we got to actually get up and get involved and stand up for ourselves, because we can't just wait for the next person to do that anymore, because we don't have time. Cool.
Yeah, I think something that really excited me when you were telling me about the idea originally was this, that it's bringing people into voting. It's not taking them out, because it's so easy to opt out because we don't agree with either side, or, you know, there's no one that speaks for us. But if we can speak for ourselves, we can really come in and make a difference. And I think once people begin to understand that it's your voice does count, that's just going to draw so many people in. And it's actually such the opposite of what we've got now. So that's one of the things that I absolutely loved about the system that you've created. We do have a question, and it's, how do we educate the public on the difference of blockchain technology and crypto coins? Sadly, these words are almost synonymous in the common mind.
I think that it's hard to separate But I think that's due to the education and the media portrayal at the end of the day, as in they're always paired together when they can be separated, which is why the system that we have used is putting something that people are very used to, such as memorabilia, in the category of traditional tokenized cryptocurrency versus the actual technology, which is completely just built on the blockchain. There's no cryptocurrency within any of the decentralized voting application that we are building. It's all just blockchain. It's just on-chain voting. And so if you separate assets and speculation away from technology, then there's no loser. With speculation, with markets, with trading, where something can be transacted with, no matter if it's like gold, silver, memorabilia, selling clothes on eBay, there's always a buyer and seller, and that means that there's always a winner and a loser, and there's always a potential competition. Everyone likes to get value. Everyone likes to have a win, and people like to feel like they've got the best side of the deal. None of that has anything to do with technology. None of that has anything to do with like democracy, and there's no speculation involved. The voting process is with soul-bound NFTs. So a soul-bound NFT essentially means that it is given to a wallet, which is a singular user, and it cannot possibly be moved. So I think that the natural transition of not conflating those two will come from knowing the difference and using them both, because it's like there's a lot of blockchain businesses or businesses using blockchain where they're doing it for supply lines, they're doing it supply chains. They need to have that like proof of, has XYZ left a certain port? If it has, that it needs to be put on chain, because if it doesn't arrive, it means that, you know, it's been nicked or blown overboard or whatever. So it's just about basically, you know, I think removing the speculation and the short-term thinking will do wonders. But yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of that in crypto at the moment.
I guess what I would add is that from what I've seen in the other party and what is being created, is actually the general public won't even need to know anything about blockchain. They will be able to get a wallet on their phone or an app on their phone where they vote, and that's all they really need to know. We can keep it as basic as that for people that aren't interested, because I think for most people it will just be that, you know, there's something on their phone, they can click yes or they can click no, or whatever the system's going to look like, and to go any deeper than that isn't going to be of any interest to them. And if you think about most people, that they're probably not going to have the time to look or the interest to look into it. So it's really about keeping it as simple as possible, but with the opportunity for anybody that's interested to go into and find out more, obviously, about blockchain, and about the creation of the system and what it really means. But by all means, that isn't in any way necessary for someone to be part of the other party or to vote for the other party.
Yeah, the way that we're designing the whole account opening process is to make it so that nobody with any experience can do it. Well, anybody with any level of experience can do it, I should say. So if people aren't familiar with Web3, they don't have a wallet, a cryptocurrency or Web3 wallet, then they can sign up with their email. Automatically on the back end, we will create a wallet for them, which means that we can still issue the soulbound NFT to them. As far as they are aware, they just have an email account they've signed up with. So for the purposes of, obviously, you know, we are a legitimate political party and people will be voting on policies to go in the manifesto. We need to confirm that people are a UK resident if they're going to be deciding on UK policy. So people will be able to either KYC, which is know your customer and ID, based on your email address or based on your wallet address, which means that if every time somebody signs up with their email, we're creating a wallet on the back end, and every time anyone connects a wallet, we're asking them for their email, they will always be paired. And what that means is that we can effectively allow any ID provider, as long as they know people's email or people's wallet, it doesn't matter which, we will always know the corresponding wallet or email, whether it's someone who has no idea. Everybody has done a proof of address and a bank statement, like before, set up a bank account. People are very, very familiar with that, even if they're 90. Just had one comment saying, what if I have 6 emails? You can't ID and confirm your proof of address and humanity with all of them. I mean, if you've stolen 6 ID documents, but a lot of the KYC providers that we use and that are generally used, you have to hold up your ID with a picture of you next to it. So unless you also have stolen pictures of 6 people doing that, there's only we don't need to be 10 times better or less corruptible than the current system. We just need to be better than the current system. And the current system, you can turn up with an ID. So, people turn up with fake IDs to clubs and they get in, don't they? And people turn up to elections with fake IDs and get in and can vote. We don't need to solve every single problem. We just need to be better than the current system. It's not our job to solve democracy so that not a single fraudulent vote ever goes through, because tons go through already. We just need to prove that there's another way and there is a better way. And authenticating on chain will always do that. So the main thing is getting the word out that, it's so common sense that we should have voting on the blockchain. But for example, I'm interviewing at the moment for a PA role. I haven't had a single person I've interviewed has known that the blockchain acts as a decentralized data storage, and therefore it makes perfect sense to be. And every single person I've spoken to completely agrees that it does make perfect sense, but they don't know that until it's explained to them. So this is really the key goal, is to let people know just how absurd it is to use pen and paper when we can use an immutable decentralized storage for it. It just, no one can argue with it because it's common sense. Like, even more so, it's just obvious.
Yeah, I guess that's not what they want, though, is it? They actually don't really want direct democracy and us to have a voice, because then it kind of strips them of their ability to kind of take money, shall we say, and because everything's so corruptible. And I think the beauty of the system that you've created is it's true decentralization. It can't be corrupted, and everybody has a voice. And that can you tell me about, so where these corporations now, kind of the money goes into the politicians' pockets, and what will happen to that system? So if the other party all works out and they're in power, what happens to all this money that's out there that seems to be kind of money laundered and filtered away?
Yeah, I mean, this is the main thing that I'm excited for, that I think people don't actually take into account a lot, is that people think if you get rid of the politician, the lobbying will stop. And that's not true and doesn't need to be true either. Trillions is spent on lobbying politicians and political parties and donating to political parties, and all of this ideology based. And that's not going to go away if there's a direct democracy. But the main difference is that money has to be spent on the people who are putting forward the policy, which is right now 650 people in the UK. It's in the House of Parliament. And so they get every single benefit of this, these billions spent in the UK. All of that goes to 650 people. That money is still going to be spent on the same people that are putting through the policies. But if that is the people, then the money is going to be spent on the population. Right now, like all of this ESG stuff, environmental social governance, they whitewash or greenwash the people. They, put out like the rainbow flags and all of the adverts and all of the stuff like that. because they know that the real policy and what they actually care about, they can do it through the 650 people at the top, because they don't have any responsibility to actually answer the people. Instead, they know full well that they can just gaslight and get the real policy done on the back end. And a direct democracy undoes all of that. They still want their policies to pass. They're not just going to stop spending the money. They will just have to spend it on actually lobbying the people. And so if we can decentralize the power, I believe that we can decentralize the wealth without having to tax people who do well through the nose to pay for people who sponge. Like, obviously sweeping generalizations, but it's true that we seem to have this mentality that, like, with a business, when you're making, like, if you want to increase profits, you need to become more efficient. And so you get rid of middle management. First place you go every time, middle management and efficiency. And we have 650 people who are taking so much money to do the opposite of what their mandate is. And we just say fair enough every time, and nobody looks at a possible difference. We can remove all politicians from the need to be in power. Like, they don't do their jobs. The job is to put forward the will of the people. And let's cut out the middle management, because we can put forward the will of ourselves on the blockchain, which is safer than pen and paper. And we can share in the lobbyist money. They can still spend that money on us. We'll accept that happily. It's just that it won't be going to 650 people at the top. The only people who can be against a direct democracy is either people who are politicians, fascists, and people who just don't believe humans are good people. And you can understand why some people don't believe that, because that's what we're fed, this narrative that if we were left to our own devices, we would all just murder each other and everyone would just, never get on. But I think that, if you look, what I said earlier about when there's an existential crisis, naturally humans band together. And that's because it's what we do. As that is humanity. That's not like, we don't just go and like murder each other when there's a crisis. Like, everybody like gets on, because survival is like the instinct. It's the pure humanity, and it's not death and the detriment of others' survival that gives us that. It's our survival and those around us. So I think that people are being fed this narrative that we are just antisocial animals, and it's not actually true. I mean, I'm fairly antisocial. I hate everyone, but even I realize that, like, I need my my love from now and again. But I think that people underestimate humanity and the ability that we have to actually like be okay. And yeah, people like to paint us out as like this just terrible force, when all evidence is to the contrary.
And I think it suits the powers that be to paint humanity as awful. And I think another thing that's been created is this outsourcing of everything. It's allowing people to decide for us, allowing the politicians to do what they've done. We do as humanity have to take responsibility that it's got this far. And I think to bring it back with something like the other party is where we give people the power back. And I think for many people, they don't even realize that they have that power. And part of the process is going to be helping them to understand that this is a system that can actually work and can change our country, possibly the world. And I think that's what's really important, a part of the message that we have to get out there, because I think people do feel deflated and defeated. I think that, they are just kind of getting by, a lot of people, especially with inflation and all the other things that have gone on over the last few years. So, yeah, it's nice to bring it back to hope, to give people something to hope for. So I guess I'd like to know from you kind of near future, and then maybe we can talk about longer term, what your vision is.
I mean, it's one of these where I've seen a couple of questions. I mean, how does Token contribute to the funding and engagement strategies of the initiative? I mean, because of the obviously scrutiny, naturally, like higher risk nature, and everything that we had to prepare before we went live with the token, and all of the rules regarding like political fundraising expenses. We've had to basically not do anything until everything was submitted, which means that there's usually you can, prepare certain like things. Like basically we had to just reveal to everyone at the time the token launched what it was, which means that we have to like go out to people with it at that time as well. But we're having the conversations and we're talking to like really well-known people, both in crypto and like even more importantly outside of it. And so I'm not worried about like the future of the other party. And therefore, I mean, if you look at the simple facts, if people are concerned about memorabilia, memorabilia is for the memorable, and it's not something that's short term. It is a belief based on the future of something. It's not about it's not about quick flips, because you need to have a process, and like it heats up, as in like the actual election isn't until next year. In fact, it's not until the year after next year. It's just January 2025, unless they call a snap election, which they could do. So yeah, it's just we're looking for the spark, and we've only been able to reach out for the spark, really. Like every movement, you've got to find like the what starts pushing the snowball, and then once you get to a certain level of momentum, like it's self-sustaining, and we're just waiting for that basically. And we've had to go out, and there's certain things we've got to do at a time, like get a HQ so we can point people back, and then from that HQ we need to go out to universities, because lots of students have their time politically active, and there's no reason why they wouldn't want to help. It doesn't matter, again, their ideology, like whether they are like left or right, none of it matters. It's just about political infrastructure. And even people who like politics hate politicians. Nobody who votes for Labour likes Keir Starmer, and nobody who votes for Conservative likes Rishi Sunak. Everybody can get behind removing politicians from politics. It doesn't matter about the ideology. Everybody knows that they are corrupt. Everybody knows that they're all from the same schools, and everyone knows that they're usually a bunch of nonsense. That part can't be proved, so I'll strike that from the record. But suspicious anyway. But yeah, I mean, essentially, we are purely talking on the side of common sense, and not even like the common sense like that you sometimes hear on the right wing, where they're talking about like migration, saying it's common sense, but like it is literally like so obvious. Like we can do this ourselves in a direct democracy in a way that is better than pen and paper. Why don't we do it? What are you afraid of? And no one wants to actually, it's so easy to abdicate responsibility. Like it is, like I've done it for the whole time up until like now, like in the hopes that someone sensible will, stand up and do it for me, because nobody has time for this. I don't have time for this. Like, but you find time and you make time, and you just can't, if we're talking about the future of the world, like, not to get all apocalyptic, but like 5 years is a long time. Have you seen what's happened in the past 4 years? Like how that hasn't already spilled over into something worse? Like how long do you think we have? And so if you get like, if the alert comes out over like the TV screen that says like nukes incoming, get in your bathtub, are you going to be happy with the fact that you were just working your job and you didn't have time to like try and make a change? Or are you going to think, Jesus, it's over and I did nothing about it? It's not enough to feel a certain way, and it's not enough to talk about it on social media. It's such a good outlet for all of us. We can just moan, have a little bitch, talk about like what we want to do, but we don't have time to do it. Like no one has time to do it, like, and nobody wants to do it, but you have to, because we just don't have the time anymore. We have to actually get involved and be the change that you want to see, because 5 years is a hell of a long time. And, you know, I'm not confident, like, you know, maybe it'll be fine, maybe it won't, but I'm just not confident that it will be. And so I need to, yeah, be that change, and other people need to be as well, because, you know, jobs, money is temporary, like, you know, but, you know, your life and like the life of everyone you know, and, you know, morality, you know, just common decency is just, you know, what world do you want to live in or exist in, basically. Jeez, heavy Friday afternoon. It's like,
Yeah, lighten it up. No, it's all good. I think that obviously we've got this kind of near future plan is offices, which you've been to look at, and obviously going to unis, and so long term. So say 5 years time, someone asked earlier, what's the vision there? Have you thought that far ahead of how you would like this thing to look? What's the long term vision for you?
so I spoke to, I mean, the main thing is there's going to be, like, you know, we're not going to solve democracy. It's going to be, it's not something that can be solved. It's evolving. It's an idea and a concept. There will always be people trying to circumvent it and people trying to abuse it by its very nature. It's a corruptible thing. So there's going to be an element of improvements, real life and stress testing. I spoke to a company today who reached out to me who said we've been like building something like for this, just people volunteering, just free, like really smart people, like very well educated from Germany, and they were building a system which basically it put people into, like, it had like a policy or like a topic, and it put people into these focus groups, and then they would discuss and debate, and then they would rank each other in the group based on who like had the best communication and the best like points, and then that would basically bring them onto another round. So effectively it would mean that, like, if people were just completely like, you know, they wouldn't argue independently, they would only argue one view, you know, they would just get ranked down. And so it would basically like split people up until you got two very, very informed people who would then like have this final discussion, and then that would like put forward this will. And I said logically that makes a lot of sense. However, if you are like, you know, filtering it down to a couple of individuals, there's always going to be, even with anonymity, there's always going to be an us and them versus like mentality. Like, who are these two people that are smart enough to get to here? I could do that if I wanted to. You know, the same sort of mentality where people just hate successful people because they believe they could have done that, but they don't want to, etc. So I thought their idea was very good. However, I said to them that I think it could be improved by like having that as almost a phone a friend, like, or an expert's like guide, where you still put the final vote to the people, but you allow them to basically have this like expert, high level, you know, intellectual opinion done on this like sort of anonymous footing, and it can guide, like, you know, the majority, because then people can't say, well, look at those two, you know, smart twats who got to the top and debated this out, and now we got to do what they think. But you can do both. So we're talking to and having a lot of discussions in that area and trying to find the best way to do it. But, you know, our bar, if we're going by the current like system, like, is very, very low. Like, there's a lot of ways it can be improved on. Like, you know, a direct democracy will in itself be a huge improvement, but obviously we want it to be as fair, free, and you know, representative as possible, without many corruptible holes or sways in it. So, you know, there's always a line to tread, and there's always going to be someone who's trying to corrupt the system. You know, you don't need to have a big hole in something for people to try and exploit it. People will exploit it just to do so, just because they can. And so it's just trying to prevent that, and a lot of that we'll learn along the way. But like, yeah, it will be so much better than the current system, like just by default, because the current system is the opposite of what it is supposed to do. But we're going to try and iron it out to find, like, what is perfect democracy.
And what do you see the biggest obstacles for us along the way?
That I get suicided. No, I think
Dom's not suicidal, everybody, just to let you all know.
Yeah, I'm not suicidal. I'm perfectly happy, although frustrated, but not suicidal. Yeah, I think, well, and also the 5-year question. I mean, 5 years time, like, we want January of 2025 as the election. We want to inflict a painful part of, like, the electorate, as in, like, the feat of getting a majority in parliament is like, that is like the biggest obstacle and hurdle in the world. Like, even like barely any sub parties apart from like SNP, which is Scottish National Party, which obviously do well in Scotland, get into power. Like, even Lib Dems barely get a look in nowadays. So really, we want to I want to eat into Labour's majority, because I think they're going to wipe the floor with the Conservatives, but not due to any like positives. Like, it's a shoe-in, but nobody likes Keir Starmer. He is Rishi Sunak, like, literally just chubbier, and therefore, like, they don't deserve a majority just because they're not as bad as the other ones. Like, they need to be challenged. Like, this is the point of the other party in direct democracy. It's not necessarily that we need to win and we need to wipe the floor with them all and that we're going to get to power, but we need them to be challenged, because right now there's no challenge, which means that they're free to do whatever they want and they don't feel any sort of like hurt from it. Nobody is keeping them in check. And we need them to know that there's a group of people and there's a movement that is trying to remove them from power and is trying to do it a new way, which means they don't have a job anymore. And if they actually fear that, then they are less inclined to make these terrible decisions that they know full well. Right now, they do whatever the hell they want because they know people just are too lazy or too busy or too poor to like actually come in and try and change the system. And they take the piss. They need to actually fear the outcome again of the people, because right now they're not scared of the people whatsoever. We're a joke to them. The amount that we have actually allowed them to get away with is ridiculous, and they need to fear us again, because they should, because we're supposed to be the people that elect them and the people that actually get them into this position. And right now we're just an absolute joke because we literally don't hold them accountable whatsoever. Like, nobody does anything. So we need to put the fear of God into them, basically. And we can do that by hurting their vote. We need to hurt their chances at least. If we get into power, great. But we just need them to fear us. We need them to fear the retribution of the public again, basically.
Yeah, voter apathy is such a huge problem. And in defense of the people, I think they've been worn down. The behavioral psychologists have been at work in this country for a very long time. And I think that the confusion that people feel when they look at politics or they look at what's happening in the world, which is actually by design, causes them to just look away because they can't work out what's going on, because that's how it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to be able to work it out, and it becomes too overwhelming. So I think, again, back to simplifying it for people so they can understand and they can see that there is a way for them to have a voice and make a change. So, the ball might be the change.
Exactly.
There's obviously there's a lot to do at the moment. There's you, me, and a few others, and I'm sure we'll get more volunteers. But how can people help us be the change and make the change that we want to see? What's your vision for people coming in and being part of the party?
So there's a few things that I'm currently trying to do. So number one is, I mean, network effect is everything. The main thing is finding that spark, because we've got the flammable materials. We just need to set them on fire, and we don't know what's going to actually do that. So we just need to get as many sparks as we can, and we'll see which one hits. But we need to start that snowball. And so a few of the things that I'm looking at is, firstly, the HQ will be sorted like by next week. I should know where we're going to be, and then it will be a case of I want to attend like every protest in London and flyers, stickering. I also want to be reaching out to both political societies and blockchain societies in universities. You can do all of those things, like anybody in here. Like if you go onto the content page on like the Other Party website, you can download like the logos and sticker templates, and like you can get them printed up very, very cheaply. One thing that we will do is that once we have the account opening process open, we will be able to essentially like do grants almost, but getting paid in stickers. And if you do, sign up for an account and you are putting forward like policy and you've done the KYC process, because we know you're not like, just draining like our political donations, and there is accountability, because you can't just spam us for stickers. Then we can get people to as long as we know that they're actually getting put out, like we're willing to subsidize that on our end. So go onto the website. You can download them now yourself and like print them up yourself. Even like you can get sticker paper and put it through a normal printer, or you can get a company to do it. Are you considering abandoned sea forts? They're not the well-connected like places. I mean, I know that there's like a country like where you can become a baron of like a sea fort, which is its own island nation, but I don't think that we'll get much like policy done, and it's not very commutable. So we just want to basically get like a base everywhere that we can, to be honest. And the most important thing is to not ask permission. Like, do whatever you want. Like, everything that we have available on the website, read. If you see something or you like something, like, no one needs to give you permission. There's guidelines basically on the site, on like media and content, which is like rough guidelines of how you should use the branding. Basically, don't use your common sense. Don't do anything like racist, sexist, like, just be a decent person and promote the party, and like jobs are good. Anything I didn't cross over? And what the question was about, what can people do? There's also volunteer forms. Like, look on the website, basically explore the website, because there's tons and tons of like pages. You can even like create your own Other Party token and apply for one, as long as you come to us with a legitimate plan of why you want to have that token, what you will do with the donations raised from it. Like, we can whitelist your wallet and you can mint that from our factory contract, which will be ready to do like hopefully by the end of Jan. So just take a look at the website and see what's on there that you think you can connect with. And we're gonna, from our end, do the physical, like in real life stuff. Like, that's what we have to focus on. But like tweets, hashtags, like raiding, shilling, like if you want to sell your memorabilia, then you need to create the market for it. So at the end of the day, our focus has to be on the political side of it. We can't do all of the work. Like, be the change you wish to see is literally the motto, because we do need you to be that change and to get involved and do it yourself. Because if you want something done properly, do it yourself. So world is your Other Party.
Lovely. Thank you very, very much. And thank you for, putting your heart and soul into creating it. It's a big thing that you've done. So stop it. Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we finish up?
I don't think so. I think it's just about like thinking about sort of risk and reward. Like, I'm trying to remember the guy who said it, but If anyone's ever heard the song Wretches and Kings by Linkin Park, then the intro is that one. Is there's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part, and you've got to put your body upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And it's that time for me. Like, it's gone too far. Like, everything going on, it's just like, they want us dead. Like, we are, it's like extermination, like, is the policy. And they actively tell us it as well, like depopulation. Like, that means killing a lot of people. Like, that's what depopulation is. And that's like literally like the goal. So when are people going to actually get up and do something about it? Someone has to. And if you have the bollocks, then do it. Like, really, what is stopping you? Like, think about it. Like, you know, everyone's busy. We're all busy. I was busy. Like, if I had 20% of the work that I had now, I would still say I was busy. But I keep on putting stuff on top, and somehow I'm still busy, but I'm still doing it. And if I can do it, like, you can do it. So that's that on that.
Yeah, thank you. I think for everyone, just find your voice. You know, don't be afraid. You know, it's time to push forward and create change. Dom's created the vehicle for that. Please get in touch. Please volunteer. As Dom said, this is for everybody. You know, and whatever appeals to you to do, you don't need permission as long as it's legal. We want you to find your way of expressing the change that you want to see in the world. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Dom. And are we here next week? You're welcome.
Why not? At least, not sure if it'll be same time, same day, but we'll definitely do another next week anyway. Hopefully have an update on our HQ.
Oh, yeah, very exciting. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thank you, everybody. And we will see you at some time next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.